What's up, guys? So I'm coming to you today from my stationary bike that has been getting a lot of use during this downtime. Dartboard in the background, something I've been getting a little bit better at as well during this downtime. Today I'm going to be posting a clip from the podcast I recently did with Abel and Steve. We basically talked about hormones, natural bodybuilding. Would we ever take steroids? Would we decide to do a cycle in the future? Are we morally opposed to it? Why one might want to do it versus staying natural forever? I really do find this topic interesting, as I'm sure most of you do. It's obviously a topic that's very popular in the lifting community. And so I think it's interesting to touch on and hear the perspective from all three of us here. We agree on most points. We have some differences. Now, the reason I wanted to bring this intro today is that I was recently contacted by a company called LetsGetChecked. This is a company that I had heard of before. All the reviews that I have seen have been positive, and I've seen them on other channels that are fairly big channels, and so I did start talking to a rep there and basically wanted to get an idea of what they're talking about and what they're trying to promote with the company. So basically it's in-home testing, so you don't have to go to like a Quest Diagnostics or a LabCorp. Now, as somebody who's very interested in health themselves, this is an interesting concept to me. A number of my clients have asked me about their testosterone numbers. I have a couple of clients who are on testosterone replacement therapy, and I think it's a very interesting topic, as I mentioned. So I think most of us who are in the lifting would like to know, where are we on the spectrum? Are we in the normal range? Are we potentially even above? Are we below? That's where I think it'd be a problem, because I have had at least one client who really was just not responding to pretty much anything that I was telling him. And not that, he couldn't lose weight at all or he couldn't gain muscle at all, but it was just not at the level that I would expect. And because of that, we did have him go to a Quest Diagnostics and get his blood work done. And he had very low testosterone. Now, that's not always going to be the case, but at least in this case, we had an answer. I do think if you are a male in your 20s, 30s, especially as you get older, 40s, I think it's good to have a baseline to see where you're at. Testosterone is not the only important thing for building muscle. There are a lot of other factors involved, but your hormones are certainly one factor. And so I am going to be working with Let's Get Checked, and I'm going to be getting at least 2 tests done to see where I'm at. They have various panels there, so you can get testosterone checked, estrogen, sex hormone binding globulin. I can talk about these and why they are important in another video if you guys would like. So I'd actually like to have you guys comment down below if you're interested in this, if you'd like to have me expand on why each of these hormones can affect us and how they can affect us. But I am going to put a link down below to letsgetchecked.com. And so you can actually use that link. If you use my code BRAINS, when you check out, you get 20% off. That obviously does help me a little bit as well. And this is a company that I am willing to work with because I want to see how they expand. And I do like the idea of people keeping tabs of their health. It's not just hormone testing that they have on there. They have things like cholesterol, so you can get an entire lipid panel done. There are female hormone tests as well. There are other tests that I think are good to get done. So obviously, a lot of this channel is for the audience. It's for the listeners. So I do want to hear your honest opinions on this. But to me, it sounds like a good idea. I like the convenience of it. And as I mentioned, I'm going to be getting blood work done with them as well. I want to see how that matches up with previous blood work that I've done in the past. I have a lot of values in the past, from lipid panels to hormone tests, and I'm interested to see how this lines up. So again, I'm going to have a link down below. If you want to help out the channel, if you want to help me out, click it, use my code BRAINS. If you do get tested, I'd love to have you let me know how the results go, how the process of getting it done was. DM me on Instagram, make a comment down below. You can email me, because I'd like to learn as much as I can of what the audience is getting from this as well. So again, guys, link below, code below. I really hope you enjoy this segment, and I really hope you enjoy the full segment that I have with Steve and Abel.
I know a lot of natural bodybuilders. I've heard a lot of them saying that I think everybody considered it at some point. And to me, in retrospect, it's almost interesting for how long I did not consider it at all. Like, I just looked at that as something that's just disgusting and wrong, and these horrible things that it must be doing to your body. And honestly, it didn't even really cross my mind up until we did this podcast last year, me and my buddy Sotak Andrei with Mike Israetel, when we had this long discussion about PEDs. And they just kind of opened up my eyes to the subject a little bit more. And it made me realize that, yes, this is something that can have definite negative impacts on your health, but it's not necessarily something that's going to have this disastrous impact. So that made me maybe more curious than I was before. And honestly, at this point, I've just been thinking about it a lot more from like an ethical perspective. I like to see things from different angles. And it's just one thing that I always found interesting is the stigma that's around steroids. And if I just scroll through any kind of YouTube comment section, people are accusing others and just have this kind of condescending tone towards gear users. And I just find it very ironic because natural lifters are notorious for looking for all the shortcuts out there. Like, yeah, gear is all wrong. Like that's cheating. That's a shortcut. But at the same time, they will be the first ones to spend hours scrolling through examine.com for all kinds of supplement hacks and whatever. Like, how can I hack my testosterone? But taking a testosterone injection is disgusting and wrong. So I was just thinking about a lot of that. And honestly, at this point, my perspective is that I'm not opposed to it from an ethical perspective. I'm not really opposed to it in any way. The reason why I haven't done anything and why I haven't really taken any steps towards making that a reality is because it's just the Wild West to me out there. Like it's like I can think back to how confused I was about just general diet and training when like something like what's the best rep range. Like now that is a subject that is not something that would stress me out whatsoever. I understand that, okay, any rep range can work fine. 6 to 12 is very practical, but there's nothing wrong with doing 20 reps. It's not like I'm just going to increase endurance and not going to grow muscles. So these questions are like very simple, very clear in my head. But I remember like it's been such a confusing and annoying thing to me that I could not find clear answers to a lot of these things. And I can just imagine if I started out with something like this, I would just have so many questions, probably so many conflicting sources of information out there, people saying different things, and it's serious matter as well. It's not like what's the best rep range. It's like if I'm taking the wrong stuff or I'm not taking these specific precautions, I could be developing like long-term health impact. So it's just a little bit scary to me, and that's why I didn't really I haven't really taken any kind of steps towards making that a part of my life. But if the question is purely, would I ever consider it? Probably I would ever consider it. But it's not something I have done so far. I'm not planning on doing it in the short term, at least. But I find it to be an interesting subject, nevertheless.
Yeah, no, it's a great point because as far as like the naturals looking for shortcuts, because I know a lot of people who are natural who would say it's cheating, which I think is silly because like if you're not competing, what are you cheating at? And they'll say like it's like wrong or whatever. I don't know almost any naturals who are adamantly against supplements. Like I don't. And like now, hopefully they realize that the supplements aren't really doing that much in most cases. But yeah, like exactly like you said, people are looking for this, for this, for that. And I would just about guarantee that if there was like a new creatine variation that somehow did XYZ mechanism that inevitably would cause you to put on another 7 to 8 pounds of muscle in the next year, every natural that we know would be taking it. They'd say, oh my God, this is amazing, right? I mean, I'm sure we'd all be taking it. And it's like, so what is the difference? Or what, and creatine is something that's naturally found in your body, like testosterone. So at what point is it this like moral issue for you? Is that it's an injection? Okay, well then how about methyl testosterone that you can take orally? Is it that it's a hormone specifically? Okay, what about vitamin D? There's just like, I don't think there's a clear, people just hear steroids. Part of it's the stigma in society. I think that's a big part of it. And obviously steroids help a lot more than like pretty much any supplement. But as I was just saying, that's clearly not the reason itself, right? Because if there were supplements that were natural, that almost everybody would take it. So I'm not sure where it stems from. I would imagine some of it is a jealousy thing because, and we've probably all felt that for sure. We see somebody who looks godlike and, it's kind of like, oh, well, screw you, you're cheating, that's why you look like that, and I can totally relate to that. It's, I mean, I've said so many times on this podcast how I almost feel like bitter towards those people who I didn't know were on steroids when I was a kid because I thought that was realistic. I remember I said, My long-term goal, like my 7 to 8 year goal, was 220 pounds at like 8 to 10% body fat, which I'm literally got to be at least 40 pounds of muscle away from. So, I just didn't know. So that would be my issue with steroids in like culture, I guess, is because of the stigma. Everybody lies about it. And so there's the like really, really misguided expectations, of what is possible.
Yeah.
That's my only issue with it is just people not being upfront about it. But even then, I do know people who are on steroids who don't look anywhere near as good as some naturals. So at some point, it's kind of like, does it really matter? I mean, like I have three friends at least I know who have taken stuff, and Steve, you would smoke them if you were posing next to them. So it's kind of like, I don't know. It's certainly a very interesting topic, but yeah, looks like you were saying
Yeah,
something.
if I can add one thing is what like that's one ironic thing, the inconsistency and kind of the moral argumentation of a lot of people. But I also find it funny how, some of the people like Eric Helms, and like this might be the only time ever that I'm saying something publicly that I like disagree with Eric Helms on, because like he is like whatever up there. But I heard an Iron Culture podcast where they were talking with John Meadows, and Mike Israetel was also there. And
Mm,
Eric kind of opened up the discussion and started off with, I can see how a Mr. Olympia competitor is going to use PEDs, but I cannot understand how someone who is not going to compete and is not really like earning money with this whole thing is like what's the reason behind using it? Like I just cannot see it. And to me, I mean, and actually, I talked about this with Mike Israetel when we did that podcast, the two of us, that, if you think about it, like, why do anything besides just the bare minimum to be like healthy and whatever? Like,
sure.
yeah, be around like under 20% body fat, eat a reasonably healthy diet, work out 2 to 3 times a week. But if someone like Eric says this, who will starve himself for 6 months to get down to a body fat level, which is like terrible for his quality of life, not super good for general health, compromise relationships, writes a research review, which is about the nitty gritty details about how to optimize training and bodybuilding, which for most people is not going to be a source of income. Many people who are reading that are not even competitors. So we are all kind of in this industry where we are trying to optimize something and invest a lot of thought into managing something that is really not essential to life. It's just a hobby. So really, is it that different compared to taking something and taking an injection, which is going to make you look a bit more muscular? I don't really think so. In that case, I think the people who are these super nihilistic commenters on YouTube, for example, who will, under every single video or podcast which is discussing training, are just going to comment like why do any of that? Like, why would you get down below 10% body fat? That's stupid. Like that's unhealthy. Or just do whatever you enjoy. Like you have a 2-hour discussion about training frequency and just do whatever you enjoy.
Hmm.
Like those people actually have a consistent argument, because the why would you ever take steroids is actually consistent with that message. But otherwise, I kind of see a bit of a yeah.
Yeah,
How
I
can
mean,
you
I
say
would
that? I don't know.
like a disconnect.
Yeah.